Welcome to the Carr Brothers with Jeff, Jack, and Jody Carr. They talk about current events, politics, community, and business. Take it away, boys.
Hi there. Welcome to the Carr Brothers Show. It's episode 164. I'm Jack.
And I'm Jeff.
And I'm Jody, the third of the three Carr Brothers. And wow, we have a show tonight.
Buckle up, folks. This is very intriguing. It's more in the news, more and more, as people talk about UFOs and encounters and things like that. Well, in Fredericton, we'll have our very own conference, a UFO conference and a holistic fair. Coming up April the 11th, on Saturday, April the 11th. And we're so pleased. We have a couple of guests. Our first guest tonight is Hal Skaarup. He's with the York-Sunbury Historical Society, Fredericton Museum. Hal, thank you very much for joining us. We know you already from Base Gagetown and from the museums. And
it's a very small world with the military in particular. Well, good evening. In order not to drag this out 1,400 ways to Sunday, I'd like to give you a couple of highlight points right off the bat. The first one is, why am I here talking about UFOs?
Yes, yes, that's a good question.
Okay, well, the first thing is, I work at the base museum as a volunteer, and we have had a number of people with the base who, through their experiences overseas, and I've been there and done that myself, have what we call PTSD. My grandfather called it shell shock. Mm-hmm. It's not changed a lot. Mm-hmm. And so we bring them into an environment where they're working with people who've been over there and done that and understand, and they don't judge them. And the end result is they work with us for a period of time, and after a while they say, you know, I think I can go back to work. We do get someone who said, leave me alone. I just want my tube and be gone. So I like to know, what is it that you do to cope with that? In my experience with the military, I've met a surprising number of people who claim to have had the close encounter experience.
Wow.
And they said, if you want to talk to somebody who knows, talk to Stanton Friedman, who lived right here in Fredericton. And I didn't know that until I was posted back here. So I made an appointment and knocked on his door, and we sat down. And the first thing he did was he looks at me, and I'm looking at him. And as we from New Brunswick do, you make a rather instant judgment. And his feeling was, are you here to make fun of me? And if so, I don't want you on my door. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking at him, are you making this all up and trying to make a few bucks off it? Are you real McCoy? Well, as New Brunswickers do, and he adopted New Brunswick because he ran into this flower child in California who was from here, said, you don't need to live out here, come back to God's country. And so he moved with Marilyn back here, raised his family here. And Melissa was the one who convinced us to put the museum together for him. But the bottom line of it is, I wanted to know, what do you do if you actually run into an alien? My job in the Army, I needed to find the safe roads. Is the road mined? Is there going to be an IED that'll take us out? Will there be an ambush? Is there some kind of family dispute where we get in the middle of it, people can get killed? I don't want anybody driving into that. Mm-hmm. And I've got to drive the same road in Sarajevo and Kabul, for example. So I wanted to know. The end result is you talk to as many different people as possible to get an answer. An awful lot of people have done the same with Stanton. And so we had this discussion. What do you do? And in the discussion, I've come up with what I call my safety briefing. I want you to imagine you're up at Base Gagetown and you're taking a backwoods walk. And you run into big black mama bear and her two cubs, which is a very common experience.
Yeah, could be
we
possible.
had a bear expert come up to advise us on how to deal with that. Do you stop and throw a rock at it? That's probably not a wise idea, let alone shoot it where the bullet bounces off its head and now it's mad. Do you run screaming with your hair on fire so that it has to chase you like it's a dog because it's its natural instinct? That's probably not a good idea either. What do? You stop. Stand still. Let the bear sniff you, whatever it is it's going to do. If it wants to communicate with you, it will. Back away and leave it well enough alone.
Don't poke the bear.
Now, just don't poke the bear. Apply the same thing to the alien. Now, if you watch, you might wind up seeing something you never expected to see. And I said I'd run into a number of people who have had this close encounter experience. Now, this one fella, he lives up in Johnville, which is just north of Florenceville, Bath, up the river. My mom used to take me out to visit this guy's family. But anyway, one day we're sitting out on his back deck with a cup of coffee, and he says, you may not believe this, but I got to tell you, right over there, within a rock's throw, this gigantic red ball, shining, glowing thing rose up out of the woods, really close, lifted up and very slowly moved away. And I thought, well, how do you mean big? He said, bigger than an Apache attack helicopter and smaller than a Boeing 747. I said, that's kind of an interesting analogy to whatever. I was a helicopter pilot in the U.S. Army for years. So it wasn't like he didn't know the size of what he was looking at. But he said, that's not the half of it. My neighbors have seen it as well. And a lady who lives down the hill from us, she saw some craft. She said it wasn't red, but she saw something, big object out there that landed in her field. Now, she went out on the deck of her farmhouse. And she didn't want to go any farther. She's just seeing this craft out there. And she saw what looked like 4 small people get out of it. And they went around to the side of it, and they took a great big object out of it. They lifted it out by hand, or they floated it out, is what she thought she saw, and sat on it. And you could see them working at it. He says, I don't know if they used blowtorch and gun tape and WD-40, or if they used a hammer and tongs, whatever, but they worked on this thing. Then they put it back into the ship, and the 4 of them climbed into it again. And she sort of watched and watched and watched, and nothing happened. And then a few moments later, the 4 of them got out of the vehicle and did the same process all over again. They took whatever it was that they'd been working on, set it on the ground, and they started going at it. Maybe they used the wrong hammer or screwdriver, I don't know. Somebody must have lit something with the thing, and then they fed it back into the craft. They all climbed in, and she watched, and boom, it took off like a really fast piece of kit. It just zoomed out of there. Now, I got to ask you, if you were going to make up a story, would that be the story you make up?
Right. Would they come would they have to get out the second time?
Well, things go wrong out in space too. That's what the thing that it got me.
So what year did she see this?
Oh, this is 2 years ago.
Oh, wow.
This is up the river, just a couple of years ago.
Just 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Wow.
So when did you do the exhibit at the museum? How did that come about?
Stanton passed about 5 years ago at Toronto. He died of a heart attack. He had done several hundred universities and presentations around the world, as we were mentioning. He did Larry King Live 11 times. He was fascinated by it. But he reached a point where he said, look, I'm done doing that. They can come to my home if they want to. Now, to give you an idea, when I made the appointment to go see him, I got into his house, and he had a corner like this set up with the TV cameras so that you could film the stuff. And they said, look, if they want to interview me, they can come here and do it. But I'm looking at every alien book you ever thought of, or UFO book, and all these little plastic dealy-bobbers, really tacky stuff. No. And I'm looking and said, this isn't you. Where are you? And he said, you come with me. So we stood up and walked over, and it's an old house up by UNB. And he opened the door, and I had to turn sideways to go down the stairs, because stacked on the steps on both sides to this high was every letter and drawing and picture and photo and things that people had sent him. It also had his favorite cheese recipes in there too, which is bizarre. We get down on the bottom, and there's this great big pile of boxes with paper scattered everywhere, and his desk is piled with paper overflowing. And I thought, how the hell do you find anything here? He doesn't look. He reaches behind him into a box, and he pulls out a book, and he scribbles out, here you go, Hal, souvenir for you. He knew where everything was. But I will tell you, Joanna up there with the public archives, when he gave his stuff to the provincial archives, 7 separate truckloads of vehicles to take the boxes of material. There'll be 10 years deciphering it. Now, I had known him on a number of occasions, and a couple of the people in the museum also knew them, and so they got hold of his daughter, Melissa. And Melissa came to us and said, look, do you think you could see your way to putting an exhibit together for him at the museum? And so we did. Okay. We had volunteers come out of the woodwork, believe it or not, to help us put the stuff together. They built alien mannequins. They mounted his jacket and tie, and they gave us all of his trophies and awards and souvenirs. We set them up. We got artwork and guests. We had people painting the room to make it look a bit like a spaceship, you name it. But it's turned out to be a popular exhibit. But if I can come back to the one thing that I want to get across here. Remember I said my job is to find safe roads?
Right. Yeah. How do you cope?
And not get killed and blown up. But if you did, I wound up being asked to speak with the families because I was over in Afghanistan before everybody else was in 2004. And how do you give people peace? First thing is don't judge. So when we got this bulletin board set up at the museum, there's a pile of paper, and if you want to leave a drawing or a note, we'll stick it on the bulletin board. Well, at the end of the week, we take them down, maybe 50 or 60 messages. We save them all. We don't throw them out. I started going through them. And drawing a Mickey Mouse, drawing of an alien, drawing of I believe, and all of a sudden, I saw this. I experienced this. I didn't like it.
These were the notes.
And then I started going through it a couple more. This is what I saw. This scared me. Mm-hmm. People were sharing with us their experiences that they probably never told anybody for fear of being laughed at. But they feel that they're in a safe space where they can do this. And in some of the cases where I saw the people doing this, I went over to talk to them, much as I did with the soldiers on the base who had experienced IEDs
Traumatic.
and losing friends and that sort of thing. No judgment. Listen to what they got to say. Because in that way, as a New Brunswicker does with a cup of coffee, maybe you can give them a bit of peace. Mm-hmm. That you're not going to be laughed at. You're not going to be hurt by being here or telling us. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, you're not alone. So many of these people think they're the only ones that have ever had this awful experience. Now, this is where I want to come back to, as a soldier and as the person you're talking to, I have not had this UFO experience. I have talked to an awful lot of people who claim to have had it. And this is where Stanton and I got into some rather interesting argument. He loved a good argument, and he had a great sense of humor. But with that New Jersey accent, I want the facts. If you haven't got the facts, don't be talking to me. I need something that I can hang my hat on when I'm talking to you. And just a really thick accent. But anyway, American. But I do not believe in werewolves and vampires. No such animal. There are people who may think they are. But Paul Bernardo and Clifford Olson weren't vampires and werewolves. They were monsters who killed kids. Mm-hmm. What got into their head that made them do that? And what is getting into people's heads when they claim that they're seeing aliens? Are they real? Or is it mental temporal? And if so, are they good, bad, or otherwise? And the people I've talked to who, for a variety of reasons, I talk to a lot of people who come from the psychic community, because I like to listen to people who claim to have second sight. You'd be surprised what you can learn. And in that process, I said, are they or aren't they real? And that's where we got into Stanton's research on the Roswell crash. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Why? Because in the crash in 1947, this ship went through lightning strike, and something caused it to fall out of the sky, smash into the ground, and it bounced into the air and went for a couple of more miles. The debris left behind was found, discovered, and reported to the American forces, about 80 miles north of the place called Roswell, close to a place called Torona. Mm-hmm. They brought in an Army intelligence officer, major, like me, to have a look at that. He couldn't make heads or tail of it, but there were markings on some of the debris, and he didn't recognize any of it. He said it kind of looks like Egyptian hieroglyphic, but I can't say that's what it is. So they called this stuff in. Well, meanwhile, back at the ranch, this aircraft that is, or space vehicle, whatever it is, which has hit the ground, has gone on and smacked into a hill several miles away where there are a whole bunch of university kids camping, a dozen or more of them, with their professors. It's a big lightning show going all around. And this is important. The lightning going off and radar and that sort of thing, you got to wonder what's going on. Now, Stanton always had 3 questions. Where are you from? Why are you here? How do you operate? So here's these university students up on the hill looking down at this craft, and it looks like a small silver, almost like a boomerang with tail fins on it, not a saucer, that smashed into the thing and obviously got terrible damage. And there are what appear to be dead bodies around it. Mm-hmm. What the hell, over? With a very, very short period of time, a whole bunch of military people turn up. Now, the military people are turning up with a bulldozer, a tractor trailer, half a dozen heavy 2.5-ton trucks, and a great big 18-wheel, if you want to call it, heavy lifting crane. Mm-hmm. And they clear everything out. Now, if you've ever heard of a fellow by the name of Orson Welles, mm-hmm. one day he was reading a story, I think it was in the 1940s, around 45 or so, where he was reading the book by H.G. Wells about War of the Worlds, about aliens who come. In between his broadcast, because he was reading it, the aliens are here. They're killing us. Run for your lives. By the way, this is a radio broadcast. It's a story by H.G. Wells. Please don't take it too serious. people took it serious anyway.
Yes.
Car accidents, casualties, people trying to evacuate the city because the aliens were here. And the American government goes, we can't have that happening. Jesse, you got to tell people you didn't find an alien craft. And he didn't. He never saw the actual craft. He only saw the debris. It was others who collected all that stuff. And said, okay, tell them it's a weather balloon. Well, everybody knew it was a weather balloon, but they thought for the greater interest and the peace of mind of people, let's tell them a story. And they've been doing that ever since. People don't realize that why were there at least 7 crashes in around that same area? Because at the time, it was the only place where they were testing rockets and missiles. It was the only place where they were testing nuclear weapons. And it was one of the few places they were testing advanced radar. And what caused this crash in the first place? Well, here's where they brought in outside experts to examine the bodies. When they were doing the autopsies in the bodies, they realized they got 4 of the creatures. They found 3 the first day. They didn't find the 4th one until some time later. And it had been, well, after being out there for a few days in animals, you can imagine. They didn't have any internal organs. No heart, no lungs, no intestine, no stomach, nothing like that. They were like a plant. It was like they had been grown. And years later, over research into these things, the same people were not allowed to tell anybody, but they were able to talk among each other. They discovered that these creatures were grown almost symbiotically. And have you ever seen these little drones that have 4 propellers on them? What happens when one of the propellers stops working? It doesn't fly on the other 3. It goes down. They think the lightning strike knocked out one of these drones, and that's why it crashed. But they were there to monitor nuclear testing, rocket launches, and radar, and whatever else we were up to. Because wherever they're from, doesn't necessarily mean they're from out there. We don't know. They don't want what we're doing in a bad way coming to them. And so they watch. Now, in other things, I read that they recognized that these things were obviously not aliens because they can stand the gravitational forces of sudden stops at thousands of miles an hour. We couldn't. We'd go through the window and that'd be the end of us. But the people who designed them were much bigger, much more intelligent, and probably much lighter. For a variety of reasons, they felt that they probably can't stand our gravity very well, and it causes them to bend over or flatten out. Not all of them. There's so many different kinds that they have these things doing reconnaissance on their behalf. So that the little gray beings that people are reporting don't seem to be too swift and very difficult to communicate with. They're essentially robots. And this is what technically they found at Roswell. But we've had an incident right up here in the northern part of New Brunswick where 3 people in cars stopped to have a look outside the mines that are up there. I can't think of the name place. Fellow's written a book about it up there, and I'll tell you more about that later. But the 3 cars saw this ship come in and land in broad daylight, like lunchtime, not dark. And they all stopped, and nobody got out of their car. They're looking at this thing, holy smokes. And a bunch of creatures got out of it, looking like the grays that everybody talks about. Not necessarily robotic ones, but small, gray, tan-like creatures. Then a tall person that looked like one of us, but about 7 or 8 feet tall, and what they call a Nordic, because it looks like a white person in the north, but really tall, got out. And then another one got out that was somewhere in between the gray. And they went around and walked around and had a look at this cabin, and then all of the creatures got back in the craft. The small craft went over and attached itself to a bigger craft.
Wow.
And then that flew off, and this is what he's written his book about.
Sounds
up
like
here
my
in
family
Brunswick.
tree in Gary. I'm just trying to keep track here of what's what.
Yeah. And what year was that sighting?
I'm thinking the late 50s,
Late
60s.
50s,
And
wow.
for the life of me, I'm sorry, I can't think of the name of the book.
Yeah.
But I do have a website where I've got his information on there if you'd care to have a look at that.
What is your website?
www.silverhawkauthor, all one word, .com. And look up Stanton Friedman and look up UFOs. And the data and information about the sightings here in New Brunswick is what we talk about.
We have to take a quick break, so we'll be back to you in just a few minutes.
Now, with some of that, the information you mentioned, Roswell and Florenceville, up north in Bathurst as well, is some of that information on at the display at the Fredericton
Yes.
Museum?
Yes.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
What we did was when we went through the archives, and Joanna Alton, I can't think of her last name. The provincial archives have boxes and boxes and boxes of stuff. And I started going through this stuff, and when I started getting into these letters that say, this experience hurt me awfully. I didn't like it. I was violated.
Yeah.
It's
traumatic.
I said, these letters are not for the general public. You set them aside. And if people have a real good reason for seeing it, they can justify it to you. But I personally did not want to see someone who's opened their heart to Stanton to tell them what an awful experience she had. A lot of them got great experience. They were nice. They talked to me in my head. My favorite is Betty and her husband, Betty and Brian Miller. The two people who were visiting Montreal for the weekend headed south, and they got abducted. And Barney, he was a black fella, he screamed and hollered and fought and bit and kicked, and they strapped him down and knocked him out. Go to sleep. Betty sits up, and she's looking at them, and she goes, "You're not from here, are you?" And they let her walk around the ship, and they showed her some maps. And he says, "Well, boy, I'm going to remember all this." And she says, "No, we are not going to let you do that. You're going to forget it." And then after a couple of hours of examination, they were quite fascinated. Barney, his teeth came out. He had a denture in there. And they went over to check hers, but hers didn't come out. And she explained what that was about. But she said they were respectful, they were kind, they weren't quite like us. She didn't give a good description of them. And they let her go. Under hypnosis years later, because they were both traumatically affected, she remembered the map when she was asked them where they're from. And so she drew it from memory, eventually under hypnosis. The map didn't relate to anything any of us could tell from a star map. And then they got this other lady, and again, if you check the website, there's more detail there. She sat down and she had a look at the map and said, "Wait a minute, you've drawn the map as it looks from here. But if it's their map, they're from out there." So what she did was she got a bunch of ping pong balls and some string, and she tacked them to the ceiling and hung them in the shape that Betty's got. And she walked around it. And all of a sudden, plink, there's a visual of a real star map, as you would see it from Zeta Reticuli, way the heck out there, whatever. Betty has drawn from memory, in reverse, a star map of where the people come from and other planets they trade with. And everybody's going, "Oh, what nonsense."
Wow.
You, in your memory, invented a star map that you can verify with real star maps based on looking at it from the other side of the universe. And we have drawings, illustrations of that in a museum. So you never know what you're going to find out.
So, yeah, go ahead.
Well, just fascinating, Hal, just backing up, like 20 minutes from when we just started this conversation, that your goal at first was to try to marry up how people with traumatic experiences, how they're dealt with or how they're helped to cope with it. And you've made that connection because there could be thousands and thousands of other people out there that have had the traumatic experience with extraterrestrials or aliens that don't want to come forward, don't want to look for help. The same way as our military friends who have had those traumatic experiences. We've done a lot of research here, nationally or worldwide, of how we help our military friends and family deal with traumatic experiences. So that's just kind of, you're opening that comparison, or try to help, because obviously there's a lot of people that have had the traumatic experience with
also another edge to it.
Beings.
One day we were about to go on a convoy from Kabul, and my sergeant walked over and said, "Sir, we better not go that way." And I looked at him, "Why is that?" He says, "Doesn't feel right." I said, "I need a little more before I turn the convoy." He said, "Look, normally we come out here and there's kids playing stickball in the street, and there are women in their blue burqas heading off to the market, and guys are patching the mud work on their buildings. Not a soul in the street. They know something's up. They know something's up. That's a bad place for us to be." And said, "That's good enough for me. Let's go." So we took the different route. But on the way, I looked at him and said, "I need to know what came first. You got a bad feeling, and then you looked around and understood why? Or you looked around and understood there was something wrong, and then you got the bad feeling?" He said, "A bit of both."
Great question.
And I'm saying, okay, people say, "How come you talk to people you claim have second sight? They don't know any more than you and I do." And I said, "You'd be surprised." And I use that as an example. But I've been in a situation where I had a German commander in Kabul. And one day he didn't like to do a lot of the work. He gave it to me, and I wound up doing the presentation. He said, "I want you to give your briefings away to somebody else. I need you to take my place and go north to American Base in Bagram, talk to some people." And I'm looking at him thinking, he's not going to do the work. I've got to find somebody who will. Anyway, I grabbed my flak jacket, my helmet, got loaded, and climbed down, went into the vehicle. And about 10 minutes north of the city, we all pulled over in the convoy. And they got out and they're digging their maps, and the guys come back and said, "Guys, we're going to have to go a different route when we come back. Rockets just landed beside the headquarters building where I work, and everybody's locked down." I was not supposed to be there then. And I don't mean to offend anybody, but if that isn't the hand of God watching over you, what is? Mm-hmm. I put it to my mother's prayers. But that's something that most people can't accept as part of your box of tricks as an intelligence officer. What, you believe in this God thing? Hey, listen, this stuff goes on. Mm. These people who've had these encounter experiences, some of them have come out of it not too badly injured. Some of it, they haven't. And so my safety tip, besides the bear thing, and forgive me if it's out of line, is you wrap yourself in God's light, you have this experience. That is the only real thing I can advise you that may protect you. And not always, but it seems to work for a lot of us. So the whole purpose of how do I feel about people who claim to have second sight, I think everybody's got some. And I'm not going to base my entire "this road is safe, that is not" on it, but it's an extra tool in my trade box if I know people who've got disability. And don't dismiss it out of hand. But
well, we thank you. These are great insights. I just wish we had a lot more time because the 26 minutes have gone by so quickly. The conference, the UFO conference, is coming up Saturday, April the 11th. The Holistic Fair is a part of that as well. You'll be there as part of the York-Sunbury Historical Society Fredericton Museum, plus doing a tour of the Stanton Friedman exhibit.
For those who'd like to see it between 5:30 and 6:30, we'll take them down and walk them through.
And what would you like to part on?
Yeah. What I will say is, if you want to talk about it, we have got people who don't judge, like to listen, and we'd love to hear your story.
Well, this has been...
We'd like to hear more about it, too.
Yes. This has
For
been very...
viewers, let us know. Yeah. Contact Hal directly, the museum, and we'll have to have you back on. There's more to be said, and more to hear about, more to ask.
Check out the site.
Where
are you from? Why are you here? And how do you operate?
So good. People. Stanford. Well, he was like world famous. Yes. And still is. What's the website again? One more time.
www.silverhawkauthor, all one word, .com.
Okay, we'll post it as well. And we want to thank you, Hal Skaarup, for joining us here. And it's just great. Hope to have you on again soon. And we're going to take a quick little break. When we come back, we have Kat Sheppard. She is the organizer, the co-organizer of the UFO conference and the Holistic Fair that's taking place in Fredericton, April the 11th. We'll have her on to talk about the conference and much more right after this on the Carr Brothers. Hi there, welcome back to the Carr Brothers Show. It's episode 164. I'm Jack.
And I'm Jeff.
And I'm Jody, the third of the three Carr Brothers. And for those that watched the first half of the show, got to be amazed. And Harold's on his way to get beating that record of Stanford
appearances on TV.
And Larry King with the Carr Brothers here. First, we got to have him back.
Oh, that's just quite something. And so what we're talking about is an upcoming UFO conference and holistic fair that's taking place in Fredericton, April the 11th. And we're so pleased to be joined now in our second half of the Carr Brothers Show with Kat Sheppard. Kat, thanks for joining us. You're the organizer of this conference. It's the first year that the UFO side of things have been included with the Holistic Fair. So, well, thank you very much for coming on the show and talking about it.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
The Holistic Fair started in 2019.
Okay.
I became certified as a quantum hypnosis practitioner in 2018. And I went to the Riverview Holistic Fair as a vendor, and I knew the people who were doing that fair down there in the Moncton area in Riverview.
Okay.
And when I was in the room, I really just looked around and I thought, wow, there's a lot of people with this interest in this room who otherwise might not know each other exist, right? And now the clients, almost all the clients that come to me, they basically say, I have these experiences, I have this interest, and I have no one to talk to. And they really kind of feel alone in the world if they can't find their tribe. That's not to say they don't have family and friends that they can kind of talk to, but someone that can really relate with what their experiences are. So I felt like I wanted to bring that to Fredericton, and I set up the first Fredericton Holistic Fair in 2019.
Was that held at the exhibition grounds?
That was held at the St. Thomas University.
All right.
They had a room that was just the right size for that. And they sold that during COVID.
Wow. And so now, fast forward to 2026, this will be aired. The first show will be aired Thursday, but the following, that Saturday, a couple days later, April the 11th, is when the conference will be. You were mentioning off camera, 190 some tickets have been sold already.
As of this morning.
And as of this recording, it's Tuesday. The conference is 5 days away. That's fabulous. That's a great number of tickets.
I did
this
a lot
early.
of advertising for
Yeah,
this.
you did.
Yeah.
And where's the location of?
Do you know the Maritime Forestry Complex right across from the Regent Mall?
Right.
So
Now I remember I saw this.
It took me a while to
posted.
find this location after COVID, and they have a really nice lobby and big windows and a lot of nature and trees and brick, and it's a really beautiful location. It's nice to ground the energy because we can, a lot of us feel the energy in the room, and people are working with energy in the room. And the theater was there.
Yes.
So I always had this little idea in my head. I would love to use that theater for something, but it had to be its own thing for it to really be feasible, to make it work, because it was extra cost.
So the conference will be held on Saturday, and that's where you'll have UFO speakers.
Yes.
And then the fair will be set up.
You walk in the lobby,
building,
the
that's where
fair's in
booths
the
and
lobby,
things. Yeah.
and the theater is off the lobby.
So what type of speakers? You got Hal, that was on our first half of a show. He's speaking on Saturday. And who else will be speaking about UFOs?
Well, Chris Stiles is quite a well-known UFO researcher in Nova Scotia.
Wow.
And he is quite prominent in the Shag Harbor UFO Expo and has written a couple of books. I'd purchased his book, and I've been busy. So sorry, Chris, I didn't read the whole book yet, but I do know he witnessed a UFO. I think he was 14, but you have to come and hear it from him.
Right.
And there was a bunch of people that saw this sighting on the coast of Nova Scotia at that time. But within the week or something like that, I think one crashed. So there was a lot of sightings for a few days, and one crashed into the water. And he actually was able to get some government records of the log of the Coast Guard that was, because they thought that actually it was like an airplane or something, right?
Yeah.
So it was a search and rescue mission.
So he was able to get some of the government record of
He
that.
did. So it's known to be one of the more substantiated cases in Canada.
And then who else is on the docket there for speaking on Saturday?
Jim Lawrence is also from the Woodstock area, I believe. He worked with Stanton, and he does a lot of investigating and has a little publication on various stories. And he has some family friends that had some stories of sightings as well. So when I was messaging him, I said, you got the same last name as my favorite Grampy. And he says, well, what's his name? And I kind of went up the family tree a bit. So he says, yeah, we're related. So there you go.
New Brunswick.
It runs in the blood, I guess. I don't know.
Well, and then now let's switch focus a little bit on the holistic fair.
Yeah.
And some of the
Vendors
and
people.
Thanks, Joe. The
Yeah.
people that would be there.
So again, one thing about when I do an event, it is important to me that we're inclusive, and that we're not just saying, for you to explore spirituality, you have to do a quantum hypnosis, or you must do Reiki, or you must enjoy crystals or,
Right.
you know, so really encourage having a variety of people come to the fair and show how much aspects there are to it. Some people are bringing herbs, herbal teas, herbal remedies. Some people make homemade meditation cushions and things to cover your eyes in meditation, along with the Reiki, astrology, card readers.
Mm-hmm.
And if I have time, I'll do some meet your spirit guide little scripts where it's like a little mini trance and more along the lines of a shamanic journey of where you're guided to follow along and get your own vision of your spirit guide and a message.
And when you say spirit guide, would that be what some people would call like a guardian angel? Is that
Some
the same
people
thing?
might.
Or it just depends
Yeah.
who the person is.
It could be, you know, an animal.
Okay.
It could be, it could have a galactic presence. You know, I feel from my experience, it presents itself in the way that's meaningful to the person.
Okay.
That our guides know us best and they know how to communicate with us. We're just not always listening, if that makes sense.
It does. You hear that often about everyone has some sort of, people say that everyone has some sort of ability to hear or see or feel.
Yeah.
Another, I don't know how to describe it, but what, another.
Yourself. It's yourself.
Okay.
So the conference is Fredericton UFO and Metaphysical Conference.
Okay.
And the way humanity tends to describe metaphysics is to say it's beyond the realm of physical, what we can see and touch and basically, right? But what my guides tell me, the metaphysics is everything, and it is what made us as we are. So we are within that and made from that. It created us.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's communicating with ourselves.
Yeah.
Really?
Just another part of the self that's not the egoic mind that can go blah, 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 blah. Like if you have one like mine, it never shuts up, right? Until I have to sit down and make it shut up. Because
well, we've had Jason Cyrus on similar. He's a hypnotist. And he'll talk about the conscious mind and the subconscious mind and the brain. We, as humans, we only use like 5%, 10% of the potential of our brain, consciously, type of thing. So that's very, quite similar. Quantum hypnosis. What is that?
We're going into it really with an open mind. First of all, people do bring questions in. They might notice patterns in their lives of difficulty in relationships or work and something like that. So usually people have a problem unless they're really spiritually on that path and they're like, hey, I just want to know more about myself. And the intention is to meet the person where they are now. So it's to help them, right, in their present moment, not to bring in stuff that
not to make it worse.
Thank you. I didn't really want to go there,
but
but
you know about this and this.
Yeah, there is a definite an ethics and care, right, to everything. So we set the intentions, basically use a script, go to like the theta. We're talking about like brain waves and the different levels of brain waves that we can be in at any time. So it's the spot where you're just falling asleep, but you're not asleep yet. And some people, like for myself, sometimes when I'm falling asleep slowly, I'll see visions because I've learned to prolong that state, right? Yeah. So visions will come into me, and we're basically people bring in their questions, but the more open their mind is to getting what you need, not necessarily what you want, generally is the best way that it works because it is a soul spirit led information series. And sometimes we hop around a bit at first and look at different lifetimes even, or childhood, or sometimes it's the period in between lives, and learn about that and learn what these journeys were about. And because we believe we're here for a reason, and the reason is here to learn our lessons and to grow wisdom from them. So once we understand all the difficulties that we signed up for, sometimes it's worse than what we signed up for. Not everyone, plays nice in the sandbox as they were really supposed to before they came. And it's not an excuse to stay in a difficult situation. This isn't a time to realize that you don't need to stay in these hard times either, and that sometimes you need to move on and say, okay, I got that. But I've been in spiritual school too. Like, I've really studied a lot about like the Hermetics and have a teacher and stuff. So it's very like universal concept and laws of the universe sort of idea, and a oneness that everything does work together. And the more we can understand how that works together, the more we can be empowered in our life and create it the way we want to be, and not sort of feeling like a victim
or
to our
trapped
life. Yeah.
Or
So the hypnosis can journey you around and be one of those tools to help you see things that might otherwise be blocked, or we just dismiss it. We probably do have the thought that something doesn't feel right, but then we gotta get to the grocery store and all that sort of thing, right? So
that's a great conversation. I don't know if you guys want to jump in with any questions or anything about that nature.
So how did you touched on a little bit about people with UFO experience or whatever. So how did you bring the two together and like really help put?
So the hypnosis can work with a lot of different things, right? But the thing that brought me into it was that Dolores Cannon wrote a lot of books about information from the galactic realms. So people would go in their trances and they would remember lifetimes on other planets even.
Right.
So they were bringing through a lot of wisdom about how things worked on this planet. And this was years ago, before there was hardly any literature on things like there's no such thing as time. It's something that exists on Earth, but in the cosmos, there's no such thing as time. So we can be here and there at the same time, basically.
So Dolores Cannon is
the teacher of the quantum hypnosis, and I saw her videos on YouTube of this sweet old lady that reminded me of my grandmother, who actually, they both like to bake cookies, right? Sitting there talking about UFOs and didn't care who believed her or who didn't. This was her truth, and she was speaking it.
And from clients, she would have these kind of stories.
In some of the books, the stories would come. So there's the person's personal journey. The books aren't about their personal journey. This was more like another realm coming in and giving Dolores information through the person, and that information would appear in different clients, and it'd be like it would pick up the material. So it's
using the person as the
tool,
transmitter,
right, as a conduit of that information.
Exactly.
Wow.
Oh, you'd have, I mean, the Convoluted Universe series.
I know. I'm just trying to follow all this and make a map, but it's really difficult. But it's amazing.
But I was just, in sort of my curiosity about spirituality and why we're here, and I was, as a kid, had those sorts of questions, and the curiosities, like the little seeds that are planted that, when the student's ready, the teacher appears. So in her YouTube video, she's saying, it's so easy to be a quantum hypnosis practitioner. And I really never thought I'd be a practitioner of anything. I didn't see myself as this at all.
Right.
I used to be the finance manager at at an airline.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
This was not on the path.
This was not at all like, and my life went from spreadsheets, numbers, and deadlines to, and no arranging workloads and
And you're from Fredericton?
Yeah, I am originally. Yeah, I lived away for 20 years, but the airline was in Ontario. Yeah, it was at one time the third largest airline in Canada.
So you were still there when you started kind of venturing out into some of this, and then, and Dolores having her connection with the UFO part of it.
It did start there when I had kids, which I had later in life. I said, okay, all these questions I had about the world, I need answers for, because I want my kids to have access to this information so that they're not wondering about things and, have that sort of sense like, why is this such a crazy world? And it seemed to be getting crazier, right? So, but I didn't really know where to go. And it was just a whisper, and like my thoughts was yoga. And then, so I asked someone who knew the town I was in, okay, I'm looking for yoga, and I want the real kind of yoga and not the other kind. And I didn't even know what I was talking about, but the words just come out in that way. And she sent me to a studio local that the teacher was very spiritual, and she really embodied what she was teaching. And I was like, wow, I've never met anyone like this before, right? Very inspiring to me, but plus helped my accounting back and neck a lot too. So there was that benefit. And at 40 years old, I had 3 kids under 3, and 2 of them were in NICU. My twins were born 8 weeks early.
Oh,
it's like Joe and I.
And we're twins.
And one had Down syndrome with holes in her heart. And I spent, on average, in the first year and a half of their life, every other day either going to doctor's appointments or admitted in the hospital. And it was at the Children's Hospital of Easter in Ontario that I really looked around at all those nurses who were helping and their skills, and I just thought, what a wonderful thing it is to help people. And I didn't really have that feeling in my job in that sort of direct way. Like, I suppose I was helpful. I did what I was told, but like it was sometimes grudgingly.
More indirect help.
Purposeful, meaningful kind of contribution. Right. So how old are your twins now?
14.
Okay, wow.
Yeah.
So I was really trying to find out how old you were. No, I'm just joking.
Yeah, I know.
No, so then they're 14 now, and from there, as you say, that was kind of an enlightenment for you?
Yeah, these are all like little seeds planted on my journey that just kind of grew a little bit more and more and more, right? And I'm lucky for Dolores Cannon because she like, I didn't meet her. She had passed over, like Stanton had passed over before, I was able to kind of get out and try to meet him. But Dolores Cannon had a tribe too. And so I've gotten to know some people who helped her teach the courses and their path. And so there's mentors out there, right, that can really help, explain things and keep it going. And it's for me, I would call it continuing education, which is a term we used in accounting, right? To keep up with all the things. It never ends.
It's true.
It's every day.
It's almost infinite.
Yes.
And that's what I feel. I've never been to a holistic fair, metaphysical fair, but I find it's just endless. There's just so much new things to learn about or to hear about, and it just continues and grows and grows. And that's fascinating. That you'll have, how many vendors will you have at the conference?
There's over 30.
At 30.
Yeah, I think it's going to be our biggest one.
I think so.
Yeah.
How do you combine, religious faiths, with clients and things like that? You probably get this question, but how do you combine religious faiths, Christianity, Hinduism, not just Christianity, but that with channeling and quantum hypnosis, and this, the second ability to have second sight, and psychic
Jesus
abilities
was
and things.
quite the mystic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something to aspire to as well.
So is what you're saying is that it doesn't have to be either or,
Right.
I guess, is,
Yeah.
because sometimes I'll hear about
we try to
that.
separate things and label things a lot
Yes.
as humans,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
and put things in boxes and make things better or worse.
Or compare. Or
But did Jesus ever ask anybody to do that? To judge? To say, do as I say? No. He said, you can do this too. Right?
And that's similar to what you said, is that everyone has the potential
Yes.
to be able to hear themselves or hear, spiritual guides. It's whether the frequency is turned on or not, whether we're slowing down to listen.
Part of the path for me, because I never really thought of myself as having psychic abilities, things happened that didn't really have anyone to talk to. So it just kind of was just parked in the back of my mind, right? So I didn't even think about it a whole lot. Randomly, the memory would pop up, but I didn't feel like there was any place to explore it. And but part of the path, once I did really start practicing meditating and did really start to feel more things vividly, is to really learn how to discern what it is, because there are different realms and they have different jobs.
Okay.
And also, the more free of judgment you are in yourself, and the more aligned you are with love, which is the actual energy, the more clear the information and more complete it is that comes in. And then there's no question.
So love attracts love type of thing,
Yeah.
rather
Yeah.
than, some people say, well, this is a window for evil to present itself. But as you said, love attracts love if you focus on love. And that's,
Yeah,
that's
well, it
the
takes a
experience you'll have.
small candle to light a room.
Yeah.
So it does spread very quickly. But in the different realms, there's sort of like my soul and energy, different realms. And if I have a question and I'm calling in my guides and setting my intentions and clearing my field, maybe a passed over loved one who might come and answer the question. So it kind of depends on the question. And you can go and talk right to God. But guess what? God is the most non-judgmental person. He's like, you're fine. It's all good. Like, he made it all, right? He's not judging himself. We are him. So it's to get to know these different perspectives is very helpful. And in the galactic world, it's really no different. They really have different perspectives as well.
Wow.
And they think they're right, even though we might not always really care for what they're doing. But you can definitely align yourself with goodness and focus your energy on that and experience that. And I do channel the galactic realms in that way. So,
Wow.
yes.
Well,
And it just ends up being what it is. It's
Yeah.
not serving me, because actually they want the message out there.
Yeah.
And if I am asking for myself, they're basically saying, Carla, like, you're doing something wrong, smarten up. Like, you're, like this is so.
So we've only got a couple. Actually, we only have about 1 minute left. And,
Okay.
we're talking about the UFO conference and the Metaphysical Holistic Fair that's taking place in Fredericton, April the 11th and the 12th. The fair continues Saturday and Sunday. I guess, what parting words would you like to give anyone watching that it's interesting in attending the conference and the fair in Fredericton?
I really want to highlight that this is a safe and sacred place, and that we do honor that there are a lot of paths and journeys, and people are welcome to come there and be supported by people who have experience with difficult circumstances themselves. And we are holding space for that, and we're holding space for positivity and all the good things that comes with that, while understanding that people can experience some difficult emotions in the process, and that all the presenters are there, well trained, in helping people out at the same time.
Well, that's great. Well, we want to thank you for joining us, and Hal Skaarup as well joined in on the first segment, so we appreciate that, and just wish you all the best with this conference coming up on Saturday, April the 11th and the 12th.
At the Hugh John Fleming Forestry Center.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's a great venue.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Have the whole lobby area, and then the conference, the auditorium.
Yep.
And did you ever expect you'd be organizing such a conference that many years ago?
No, I did have the idea that I would like to connect with Stanton's tribe, because I had Googled, does New Brunswick have a ufologist, and found his name. And so, again, that was one of those seeds that was planted. But it was just in a meditation in January where I was meditating on the fair, and it came through to do the conference. And so it was faith first, figure out the rest after, and every day's been really busy since then.
Well, it was great intuition, because you've got close to 200 tickets sold already.
We might sell out.
Yep,
You probably will.
Well, thanks very much, Kat Sheppard and Joe and Jeff. I guess we got to wrap up our show
do.
here. So we want to thank our viewers on CHCO, on YouTube as well, and anywhere that you can find us on Rogers, Shaw, and Bell. And with that, we'll say good night. Good
Yes, we
night.
will.
Thank you.
Good night. See you
Thank
next
you.
week.